My name is Wadelin McKuur. I want to speak to you about why the detour is important for where you're going. And the subtitle is Trust the Process. So it's my first time sharing this publicly. I'm going to share my life story with you. I know that many of you set out a plan for your life and you want to achieve a certain goal, and for some reason it just doesn't come to light. I was there too. I matriculated in 2017, and in 2018 I was at home and I had a plan. Well, not really one that I thought completely through. All that I knew was that I wanted to focus on becoming a successful artist. That was the plan. At the time I'd been living with my grandparents, and my grandfather insisted that I go back to my mother. I didn't want to go there, so I decided that I'm going to live with my granny's sister. Remember, we live in a society where it's expected of us to finish school and get a 9 to 5, and that's it. So now I moved in by my auntie, and she's supportive of the dream. Remember, I had a plan to do art, and I never anticipated on moving away from home. But now I'm here, and nothing's gonna stop me. So while living with my aunt, I coincidentally bumped into a local rapper who's been running a movement where they would perform at different schools, and he wanted me to draw live. So this was a good opportunity for me to get myself out there. He then tells me about this guy that he knows who does photography. He shows me a picture of him, and I'm shocked because I know this guy. He's a guy that I normally walk past. You'd never say he's a photographer. He tells me his name is Jerome Manuel. I looked Jerome up on Facebook and DM'd him. Remember, I have a dream, and this is a good way for me to network with other creatives. So on the same day, he says to me, we should meet up. And then we met up. I show him my work and he's amazed. He says to me that day, stick with me and I'll make you famous. From that day, he became my personal photographer. I started drawing local influential people, and he would be there to snap every moment. Remember, I had a dream. A few months passed by and I was forced to move from my aunt's place. I say forced because I believe that's how God intended for it to be. I ended up moving to Annandale, from there to Klipspruit, back to Annandale, and then I came back to Elders to live with my mother. At this point, people started to call me a gypsy. One day I decided to do a drawing of Pastor Ashley Souls. I went to see him and he was there with Pastor Dean Retief. Pastor Dean sees it and he says he wants to help me. But I have to come to church, I agree. Something remarkable happened the evening I went to church. Pastor Ash gives me his phone to take videos and pictures. This was crazy to me because in my mind, I'm Wadelin the artist. He's supposed to know that. He's supposed to know that I draw. That's my dream. It was a remarkable moment because he doesn't know that he rekindled a fire that I once had for cameras. Although this was his phone, but you get the picture. When I was younger, I had this burning desire to shoot movies and to do photography. Little did I know that God was about to direct me into the right people at the right time. This was a blessing that I didn't see because I pictured something else, not knowing that God has a different plan. There's my plan and there's God's plan. At the time I was back at home with my mother, and this random morning my mother says to me that I should get a real job. But you know, I have a dream, and it turns into an argument, and then she says I must take my stuff and leave. At this point I didn't know where to go. My only hope now is Jerome. I contacted him and he says I can go and live with him. This guy made me understand the concept of what a day one is because he's been there since day one. Remember, I'm not using substances. I don't go out clubbing. All I want to do is accomplish this dream. I couldn't understand at the time why God's allowing all of these things to happen. I stayed by Jerome for a while, and then my mother and I would be okay. But every time I go back there would be an argument. So this one time God says to me, you're going to live in a church. And I fought it. I had to leave again, and this time because I didn't want to bother people, I decided to move into the church. An experience I wouldn't wish upon anyone because the church is fully tiled. It would be extremely cold during the winter time. You had to know which were the good spots, the warm spots. Remember, all I had was a dream, and now I'm here. I was so confused because it seemed like my plan isn't working out. And this one time I drew DJ Fresh. When people saw, they celebrated the moment, not knowing what's happening behind the scenes. That after meeting with Fresh, I'm going back to a cold church. There were evenings I'd cry, not understanding what's happening to me. Why me, Lord? I would ask. This wasn't part of the plan. You showed me that I'm going to be successful and that my gift will make room for me. But I'm here. People are celebrating me in public, but in private I feel like a failure. I remember Pastor Ash telling me every evening before leaving, you have to pay the price. So while being at the church, there was a need for someone to do the church's production. And at this point, I can only take videos and pictures. I don't know anything about editing. So I had to learn using YouTube. Remember back in 2018, my plan was to do art only, but God had a different plan. Late 2020, I moved back home. I had to move back home because God wanted to restore the relationship with my mother. God tells me that she's the link to my success. I can't move forward without her. In the beginning of this year, God reminded me of a dream Jerome and I had called Trust the Process. We established this brand so that both our brands could be under one umbrella. But the whole idea behind Trust the Process is to inspire people and to give them hope. And this is what we wanted to do back in 2018. But we couldn't because of lack of resources. And then this year, God reminds me of it. I had a plan, but God had a different plan. God says, start it, you have the resources now. I speak to Jerome about it and we decided to resurrect the dream again. We started recording people's stories, but then we had to make a faith choice. God says, you need to do this full time. I hesitated at first. I'm afraid because I don't know what to do. There's no plan, only God's plan. I don't know where we're going to get the money, the venue, the equipment, but I know that God's going to make a way. We're 6 months in and God sent people to be part of this movement, each bringing a different and unique skill set. I stand here not knowing what's going to happen next, but I'm trusting God's plan for my life. You see, I had a plan, but God had a different plan.